Oh my goodness, Julia.
Hello, howdy, Disco citizens. I am Julia Marchese,
And I'm Teri Gamble.
and welcome to Horror X, a collaboration between the George A. Romero Foundation and our podcast, Horror Movie Survival Guide.
Yes, Horror X explores the femmes who help make fright films fantastigorical and palavers with them about their experiences in film and horror. And today it's so much fun. I'm so excited.
Yes, we are thrilled to sit down today with Alyscia Cunningham, who is a multifaceted award-winning author, filmmaker, tactile artist, photographer, with contributions that have graced esteemed platforms such as the Smithsonian, National Geographic, and the Discovery Channel.
Those are all huge.
Yes.
And she is the founder of Her House Media, an independent media company dedicated to producing documentaries and horror thriller films and books that spotlight the stories and perspectives of women's health and beauty and women of color with a commitment to accessibility and impactful storytelling.
Alyscia Cunningham, welcome to Horror X. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yay.
Yeah.
So tell us everything. How did you fall in love with horror? Where was the beginning for you?
Oh, very beginning. I always feel like there's a long story within the story or stories within the stories, but
Good.
That's why
This is
we're
what
here.
right? To make a long story short, I actually realized most recently that I was inspired to create horror based on my parents. I'm a first generation American. My parents come from Trinidad and Tobago, and I spent a
It's the
lot of
most
time
beautiful
with them.
places on the planet. Oh my
Oh,
God.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just came back a few weeks ago. So I'm still
Oh,
feeling all the good energy from there. But I spent a lot of time with my elders, and so I grew up in Corona, Queens, New York. And my parents used to tell me the stories of just their upbringing. I always love to hear stories. I think of all
Yeah.
the kids, I was probably the one that spent a lot more time with the elders than other family members. But I just love to hear them talk about their upbringing. My brothers and I would sit with my parents, and my father's an amazing storyteller, and he would just talk about his personal stories. My mom would also talk about her personal stories. And then there were evenings where my dad especially would set a candle and talk about these folklores from Trinidad. I remember my mother, we used to have back in the 80s, there was we had these crochet blankets. So I still have this visual of my mom in the dark with a candle lit. My dad is telling a story. My mother had this crochet blanket over her head, but the stories would scare me so good, and that definitely inspired the horror aspect of
that
what I create.
sounds so delicious and so delightful and just like a warm, cozy memory. I crochet and I knit all the time. So I'm just imagining
Oh,
now
wow.
I'm going to have to start telling stories with candles now. That just inspired me.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Mhm.
But I think that's amazing. I think you're the first guest we've talked to, where are your horror origins? And they start before film, right? They start
Right.
with story, with verbal bringing down this. And I think that's
Mhm.
incredible. So did your parents also introduce you to film?
No, actually, so I went to school for photography, and it was a photography class that I took. I thought, I went from photography and I evolved into doing an independent study that I had a plan for a book that I thought about. It took me, some time. That's the story behind that story. But after doing the book, it was my second book. I did an independent study I went back to my local community college, and I More Than My Hair is the title of it. So it's stories of women with hair loss, so alopecia, and how that's related to health related conditions. I took that book and I was planning for a crowdfunding campaign, and so I was taking footage of the various women that I met, just with like quick backgrounds. What do you think about yourself? Why are you more than your hair? So I took that footage and then submitted it to a local nonprofit here, Docs in Progress in Maryland, where they support local filmmakers in the documentary field within the DC metro area. I believe there wasn't. I think I was the first who actually had a trailer that wasn't related to film. I just my trailer that I wanted feedback on was what I thought would be my crowdfunding campaign video.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's so smart.
yeah, it was somebody actually had recommended it to me. I was like, I'm working on this campaign for a book, and I need feedback on my footage that I'm doing for the crowdfunding campaign. At that time was going to be Kickstarter, and she was like, hey, I know Docs in Progress, submit it. You can get feedback from the audience, even though it's not a trailer. But I remember after I showed the trailer, which was about 5 minutes long, and I wanted to break it down to 2.5 minutes, and I can still see the audience in my head. They sat there really speechless, and they were like, why are you not a filmmaker? I said, well, no, I'm not a filmmaker. I'm a photographer. I'm an author. I need to do this for my book. And they're like, no, you need
Those
to
are
make this
literally
into a
all the
film.
same things.
Yeah.
You have to do all of that. The things that you just
Right.
said that you're doing are all the things you need to be able to do to be a filmmaker, right?
Exactly.
Have an eye, right? And you have that eye and you know how to write.
Right.
You're already putting them together. That's so
Without
brilliant.
knowing it. Yeah, without even knowing it.
Yeah, I
Yeah. So I
love
just
that.
jumped into it. I decided I went back to the women and started getting the footage and the interviews and ended up, long story. It took 5 years, but
Yeah.
made it into a film,
And what
Yeah.
got you interested in making that particular film in the first place?
I think it was because I already had the story there, So I was
Mhm.
meeting with a lot of women, thankfully from the different organizations that's related to women's hair loss, that connect me with everyone. And I just, I just connected with them, had good relationships. We actually created a bond, after 5 years of connecting and meeting with people, most that I'm still in touch with, some that I'm closer with than others, and I just, because of that bond, I wanted to continue the journey going. I figured that what better way than to tell their stories, but now going from a book where people can, you can read, but now a visual with the film where you can read, you can hear, because you have captions and everything. But I feel like it's expanded my art form.
Like you get a deeper understanding of the subjects. That's so
Exactly.
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
I think you're amazing for dabbling. You didn't even realize film was for you, but then once you get into it, you're dabbling in documentary, but then which is a completely different way of filmmaking than narrative filmmaking, right? With
Right.
documentary, you film and film and film, and then you edit and make a story out of what you have, right? In
Right.
narrative, you're only filming what you're writing and imagining. So talk about, if you could, the transition between those two.
Yes. So then I went from doing my doc. I finally had a screening in 2019, right at the end, right before the pandemic, which I didn't know was coming. So it went from now, going out and meeting with people and what I thought would be like film festival circuit to now everything is at a halt.
Mhm.
So luckily at that time, because of the pandemic, a lot more groups, everybody went virtual. So I did a Google search actually, like looking for women of color in film, and found women of color filmmakers who is based out in California, but because of the pandemic, they went virtual. Um, and I was able to meet with them. I connected with them through Meetup, was joining the weekly meetings. And then they launched, Sholandi Maduro is the co-founder of that one, of Women of Color Filmmakers. And they had launched a lab, so a narrative lab. So because of that narrative lab, I was able to participate, and I produced my first film, my first horror narrative, and it was Annexation. So I did that lab. I did the second lab again in that same year, and produced Dwin, and then I went on to do 4 other labs after that. And so now Dwin 2, which I recently wrapped up with production this year in January, and had the premiere last month, is my 5th horror film.
Amazing. Can
Yeah.
you tell us more about these labs?
Congratulations.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
The
Could you
labs.
Oh yes, the lab. So the lab is it's intensive. I believe it's between 4 and 6 months. So Women of Color Filmmakers was offering courses online to virtual, so learn lighting, you learn the whole thing, pre-production, production, post-production. So giving us preparation, classes of preparation, including a mentor, being connected to a mentor, and then you have to go and shoot. You shoot, and then you submit your rough cut. After that, you get your feedback. It goes back, and then at the end, there's a lab. There's a showcase online where then we all see our films. So just an amazing opportunity that I would not have had I not. Honestly, if that pandemic didn't happen, I don't think I would have ever been connected to them, because they were only having meetups in California, in LA. So it was a wonderful opportunity.
Small
Yeah,
blessings. There are
exactly.
those. There are
Right.
those. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
accessibility blessings, all of that across the
Yes.
country, I think. That's
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I jumped in and I just started, so now the my most recent film, Dwin 2, which is based on the Trinidad and Tobago folklore of the Dwin, is a feature. So it's a proof of concept for a feature film, which is my next
Ah.
focus, which will be my first.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
amazing because I watched the first one and it was really really cool. So I'm excited
Thank
to
you.
see the second one and then to think
Thank
of it
you.
bringing into a feature that would be amazing.
Yes.
So can we jump back just a little bit? Can you talk
Mhm.
about your entrance into horror film itself, horror cinema, as a viewer?
As a viewer, so I loved horror from when I can remember. I think my earliest memory was Tales from the Dark Side. So I would watch.
Mhm.
Is that the one that right? Is that it? Okay.
Uh-huh.
So I remember as a kid, just I would sit there by myself and watch it. I would be scared, but at the same time, I enjoyed it, the actual viewing of it. So that was my first experience. I went from there to, I know it was with Jason, Freddy Krueger. I think there has not been a horror film that I haven't watched after that. To be honest, I was so intrigued by it. And then also the funny thing, as I remember, my brothers and I would, because they would watch, we would watch it together as well. Sometimes, we would also look at it and we would see. My brother would always point out when there was we could see the crew in the back or there was an arrow, you see a light drop,
Uh-huh.
Oh,
so yeah.
yes.
At that time I think the editing was maybe a little bit harder, but so at that what it did is it made the horror intriguing, but then also funny at the same time because we would see the mishaps,
Yeah,
you know.
like oh, microphone, mic in the
Yeah.
frame, you know.
We love those little details. Those are the things we savor all the time too. I'm like,
Oh, right.
or
Yeah.
the extra that's clearly watching the scene that should not be watching the scene in the background. Those are my
Right.
favorite. Just,
Right.
like
Yeah.
that setting you back in reality, but also giving you that little bit of space to be like, oh, this is a play,
Exactly.
like that. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily real what's happening
Right.
on screen, but
Yeah.
seeing the craft. I feel like all of us who are intrigued by all the pieces of the craft are the
Yeah.
ones that eventually work in it too. So,
That's very true. Yeah.
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 So you already were
Absolutely.
developing that eye. I love that. And
Right.
you look
Yeah.
at you checking out the scene shots and everything.
Right.
So, what are some of your
Mm.
favorite films?
So favorite films, horror, or just in general? You mean
Let's do
Both.
so?
horror for now. We'll
Yeah.
Okay.
do we can do a genre
Okay.
I
later.
want to know it
Uh,
all.
okay. So favorite horror right now is so I know I don't know why I continue to watch. I love horror that is constantly kind of going back to survival, like where
Mhm.
people are really trying to survive. So World War Z is one of my favorite. My children get tired of me watching it all the time. Yeah.
Oh,
Uh-huh,
nice.
uh-huh.
Yeah. I love Get Out. I also love Us is a really good one.
We
Mhm.
just covered that on our podcast, Horror Movie
Oh,
Extravaganza.
did you?
Mhm,
Oh, okay.
mhm.
Yeah, this is my favorite. This is all survival, right? Um,
Yeah.
and then what is the one that I read? 30 Days of Night. That's another one that sticks out in my head. I also loved was it Alien? The one with where they were out in the farm? I love alien movies too. So and what is another one that comes to mind? I don't know. Oh my gosh, I don't know. Oh, Break-In. I know that's kind of like horror. That's the one with Gabrielle Union. Break-In inside.
Oh,
Oh, I
okay,
don't know
yeah.
that. I don't
I
know that
haven't
one.
watched that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't watch that one. That was good. Hush.
I
I
need
loved
to.
Hush as well.
Yes.
Oh, we love some
Yeah.
Flanagan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what comes to mind right now. Yeah.
Hush is great. That's a great
Yeah.
survival film too.
Yeah. I love those intense, really intense.
Mhm.
So I'm not really into gore, but I love the psychological, or intense moments. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what are your other cinema, non-genre cinema or other genres that you like?
So I love documentary, honestly. So I spent a lot of time watching those too. So Sprint, for example, that's a one that's recently on Netflix that I saw maybe a couple months ago. That's about the track field.
Mm,
I think there's another one, Champions, which is another sports one. But
Mhm.
um, I just love the commentary here of of the how people have started and where they are now. I think that's a beautiful journey to see that. There's another one I watched, We Are Gods, had most watched most recently.
What's that one
And
about?
so that one is about the I believe he's a scientist, but how he is now trying to, not that I necessarily agree with it, but I did love the story. Trying to um clone or bring life back to the mammoth,
Oh,
which
they trying to Jurassic Park?
yes, exactly.
Oh
Right.
no.
All right, yeah. All right. All
Why
right,
do
yeah.
they keep doing that? I just
I
feel like the
know.
lesson is never learned.
I know.
Um,
Right. Good story though. But
yeah,
I
yeah,
not necessarily agree with it. But
yeah.
and
The
I
ethics
watch,
of
I
it,
feel like
right?
Right, exactly. I feel like I watched too much of I Survived. I watched that a lot.
I don't even
I
know
think
what
that's
that
a lot.
is. What is it?
So it's a documentary series about people who survived horrific situations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, so like bear, one was chased by a polar bear, almost died there. It's like a situation where someone was kidnapped and, but they've all survived from these
Mm.
horrific circumstances.
Well, I think you're on the exact same track we're on, just on a real life way. Because Teri and I, our podcast, Horror Movie Survival Guide, the idea is we watch horror movies and how do you survive this particular film, right? And the idea is if we watch enough of them, eventually we too will have the knowledge to survive. And you're doing the exact same thing, right? You're giving yourself all the skills necessary. If you're in that situation, you're like, I remember how to survive this.
Right, exactly. Yeah, well
Hopefully.
said. Right. Oh, we remember, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even though time and
Yeah.
time again, the person who knows the most is not the one who always makes
Stop.
it. But
Don't say that.
That's
I
what
just think
tends
it's
to be the
funny.
issue, right? And that's what a lot of people saying. I survived. It's like I knew it. Like I knew. Like I practiced this. I had this in my head, and then all of a sudden I'm in the situation, but they still survived. But
Yeah.
somehow something kicks in that moment.
All
Yeah,
right.
which is great.
So I want to get into some like recommendations, or if there's like, something super scary that someone who's getting new into horror, what would you give to them to get them into the genre? What would you pass on?
Get them movie wise, like a movie to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah.
So what was I'm trying to think of it takes a lot to really, really scare me.
Yes.
To be honest.
That's why we always ask y'all for recommendations on this show, because
Right.
we get some of the best ones this way.
Right. So again, survival movies are ones that do kind of get me. I cannot remember the name of this one. I wish I would have thought about that before. But
That's okay.
there was a movie. Well, I know the Babadook is really good. I just love that story.
Yes.
There is a movie that I saw a couple years ago where there was a couple in the woods. They were supposed to go camping, and ended up being a situation where there was a group of teens. I don't know if you what I'm talking about. That ended up finding out that it was a cult. But these teens ended up murdering the husband, and the wife had to survive. The only thing I did not like how it ended because the wife ended up dying, but or the thought was that she did die, but that was I wish I would remember that one. Other
That's
horror
giving me
really
like the Ritual meets Midsummer vibes, whatever this movie is, and I feel like
yeah,
I'm gonna be into
Midsummer.
it, and Julia may not like it, but I feel like I'm gonna love it.
Oh, okay. I'll have to get back to you on the name of it too.
Yeah, if you can remember,
right, yeah.
please message
Yep.
us, because
Yes.
I need it. I need to
And
watch
Okay.
that.
we
I need to
we
see these
live for movie
people
recommendations.
die in
So
the woods. That's what I need to
Okay.
see.
Right, yeah.
Especially if there's a weird cult involved, because that's also
Yes.
one of my favorite things. I love
Right.
weird cult things. I
Yeah.
love
Like
people getting
Midsummer.
sucked in. Yes,
Yeah, that was good.
like, oh, make it.
yeah,
If it's really pretty,
Right.
oh, kill me.
yeah.
Right.
And
Take me out
I
there.
just bought the novel for The Ritual, so I'm excited to read that because that's going to be harsh. If you
Ooh,
haven't seen The Ritual, Alyscia, highly
Yeah,
recommended. Really, really brutal, but really
I
amazing,
saw that
and
great
a
one.
survival.
great monster
Yeah,
design.
it was a good one. I did see that
Hmm.
one.
I
Yeah.
Yeah,
love that. Yeah, we love that
yeah,
monster. We got to hang out
yeah.
oh, rest in peace, that venue, that space, but we got to see the actual monster, like the prosthetics and all the stuff, like here in LA.
Oh,
There's
right, you got to see it. Actually, you got to
yeah,
see.
the
Oh,
actual monster itself. Yeah.
oh, that's cool.
So cool.
Oh, wow.
Just a
Mm.
pretty weird, fun, weird looking monster. It's great.
Oh,
So,
nice.
can you talk about Her House Media and how that came about?
Yeah, so Her House Media, initially I had my company was AC Media, which is, Alyscia Cunningham. But then I could not what I learned is really, really important is to have all of like social media, YouTube, like all those channels as the same tagline. And because I couldn't get it, I was looking for different companies that represents what I think what is. So Her House Media is, women of color in the field of documentary and horror with an impact, which is, really important. And I went through different names that I felt was relative and got Her House Media. I had Her Lens Media first, but I think the Facebook page wasn't available. So I ended
Okay.
up landing in Her House Media and just
We know
secured it
how
that
that
way.
goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm the Teri Gamble on all the platforms, because there was another one ahead of me. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm Julia C. Marchese, and I'm like, whoever just has Julia Marchese must get so many messages that are just not
that are meant for you.
meant for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. And it worked.
yeah. So
Oh,
Yeah.
tell us more about the company.
yeah.
Yeah, so I did it as a way to have support because I often have specifically women of color, because as a woman of color, you usually reach out to who who you feel you can relate to, you know. So reach a lot of women of color have reached out to me because of the work that I do to say, hey, I need support. Can you offer me this? How'd you get this grant? Excuse me, how'd you do this? So I really the company focuses on supporting women of color in the documentary and the horror field. What is really important is when I do speak with other women in the field is one thing that I'm really big about is that it cannot be work that is stereotypical. So it does have to have an impact. It doesn't necessarily have to be. I know oftentimes when there's focused companies that are focused on the experience or the Black experience, like they want to know it's only like has to do with advocacy. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. I don't want it to just be like about the struggle, but I just want it to be like real stories, you know, people of color, but within those two genres. It doesn't have to be in front of the screen, but definitely behind the scene, you know, behind the camera. Then the writer director is really important. So how I can ever support them in their journey of creating their films in those two genres is, and I'm open to also, you know, helping people in other genres as well. But this is my focus is documentary and horror.
I love it. Have a focus.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah,
it.
most definitely. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's my two favorite genres, so why not?
Yeah, two
Hello.
of my favorites as well.
Yes.
And I've made two films, and one is a documentary and one is a horror. So
Yeah.
you're like,
Oh,
there you
okay.
go.
I was like, yeah, you're speaking our language. So
Okay,
yes.
good. Good. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Can you,
Yeah.
I'm curious more because I know you have your TED Talk as well. Check
Yes.
out Alicia's TED Talk, everyone. This is my plug right there for your TED Talk as well. But about
you.
accessibility, can you tell me how that came to be and where your big idea and genesis for saying you're going to go do one? Because I know those are very like kind of crazy intimidating. My brother's done one and I cheered him on the whole way, but I was like, that's a lot to go and do that. Tell me
Nice.
about that, how that came to be.
Yeah, so the accessibility came to be at the same when I had my film premiere in 2019 of I Am More Than My Hair. One of the women who was also I filmed, Marguerite Woods, who's blind, and she lost her blindness from a side effect that she was taking from a side effect of medication she was taking to prevent blindness.
Wow.
To prevent hair loss. It actually
Mhm.
caused her to go blind. But she at the end of the screening, she got up and she said, "Oh, you know, I can feel all the energy in the room. I think is beautiful, but the only thing the only feedback I would give you is that I couldn't see it because there was no audio description." So she actually introduced me to it, and then afterwards, I had a conversation with her like, "What is audio description?" I didn't know what it was. And audio description for everyone out there, it just helps those who are in the audience who are visually impaired to be able to see what the film is because it's a verbal description of what we see on the screen. Um, so I have done my best to implement that in all of the films that I've worked on. And then from that, someone recommended me to TEDx Deer Park, which is in Long Island, Long Island, New York. And so I did that in 2013. I did a TEDx about the importance of and how artists, not just filmmakers, but artists in general, can implement accessibility into their projects. So the one thing that I know is a issue is sometimes budget because you know it's a lot to produce a film, you know. So oftentimes accessibility comes in last, and then or it's just the ball is dropped on it. But there's simple ways that it can be added with the audio description, a QR code if you have an exhibit, and then the QR code can take you to a verbal description of what's seen in the image. But our description and closed caption, I would say, is at least the most important, and that it can be definitely made affordable. And I use social audio description project to work on all of my projects.
That's great.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it till I accidentally turned it on like Peacock Television has audio option on most of their shows, and I didn't realize it till I was like when I was like playing around the house, like had a show on in the background. I was like, this doesn't feel like it's part of the show. Then I was like, oh, and then I went into the captions and I realized I was like, oh, this is audio description of like the scene. So it was kind of great when I was cleaning the house because then I could hear and see. So I was like, oh, this is like kind of awesome. And so I just left it on for that show while I was, putting around the house and got the whole show that way. So that is a really great, a great way. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I even heard it a couple of years ago without knowing what it was. And I thought, so same thing. I was doing something. So I'm like, okay, I can hear it I just looked at it as a podcast. I don't know why. I never knew that's what it was, So it was helpful. Right. Yeah.
Well, you've also put visually impaired on the screen with Seeing Without Sight, your documentary, and also Senses. So can you talk about those projects?
Yes. So, Seeing Without Sight is the stories of women with vision loss, and the purpose of that is I really wanted to be able to challenge the audience to see beauty beyond the sense of sight, because that's how we've always been told it is. But to hear their stories and how these women see beauty, it was just so profound to me, and it was inspired actually by Marguerite, the same person who inspired me to make my films accessible. And it was from my interview in her with "I Am More Than My Hair," when she showed me what beauty was. I was like, oh, this is so profound. I should do a documentary about it. So that's how Seen Without Sight came up. But the Senses, which is the horror short about two friends. So one is blind, the other one is deaf, and they have to fight for their life for survival after a robbery that went wrong or gone wrong. And that one was just an idea. As I was sitting here, I have it on my Google Drive. I have folders of different projects that I have in mind. It's about 20 folders in there. Budget is always the thing. Money is always the situation,
Always.
right? But
I don't know what you're talking about. High tech over here.
Man, if we just had endless money, so many more projects in the
I know,
world. You're like,
that would be so nice. Yeah, but I have this
so
project sitting in there. That was one that was there, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to work on this, and I did it with the lab with the shorts lab with Women in Film and Video, which I'm also on the board and a member of.
Ooh.
So that's how I ended up coming. I just they did a short. And I was like, well, you know what? I have this one in my folder. I'll take this out, and I flushed out the short and then produce that one. Yeah.
amazing. And then you get to talk about it on your TED Talk and bring that to more people. So,
Right.
it's being inspired and then inspiring others as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that was the goal, is to be able to just have I feel like a simple um solution to accessibility, and that also was prompted from an exhibit that I did, that I made it multi-dimensional accessible for anybody wheelchair bound or blind, deaf, hard of hearing.
Oh, tell us more about
Yeah.
that, please.
I was
Yeah,
just
so
gonna say,
that
tell me more. I want to hear all about that exhibit and what was there.
Yeah, so the exhibit was initially it was supposed to be just pictures of the women. So it's from the book "I'm More Than My Hair," and the goal was to have about 20 pictures of all the women. But because of what I also learned with Marguerite, now this was in 2020, I had already gotten the approval to do the exhibit in the beginning of 2020, but because of the pandemic, things had changed. But I then on went to do some research because I could not find. First of all, there was no one who else who had done this.
Okay.
So I was really pretty much trying to find this out on my own with some support from other people in the accessibility community to help me to put some pieces together. So I had the 20 images of the women of 20 women in the book, and then I had lithophanes and that matched each image. So a lithophane is a raised print, so it's like
Okay.
a 3D print, so that therefore anybody who was visually impaired can feel it. Um,
Oh, neat.
Yes, and then I had a QR code that they can scan, or there was also audio pens that you can. There was a sheet what each image was, and then you can put that. The technology I can't explain, but I know that when you scan that pen over one of the names, you'll hear the audio description of what the image looks like. And then it was the audio described version of the film that played as well. So I just made it and then there was also I had braille of each description of each image as well. Yeah.
So cool,
Yeah.
Alyscia. That's so
Yeah.
neat.
Yeah, I enjoyed
I
the
got
process.
goosebumps. That's so beautiful. And that
Yeah.
sounds like such a I don't know. I would feel really good after doing something like that. Like
I
that's
did.
you had to feel like that sometimes you make
Right.
something, you're like, I made a thing, but that's like
Yeah.
something like I made a thing. Like that sounds so cool
Right. Yes,
and
thank you.
so
And that's
beautiful
what
and such a
also.
great way to honor these women too, like
Yes, thank you. Yeah,
yeah.
thank you. And that's what the TED Talk. That's the reason. Now thinking about it, that's the reason why I ended up getting the TED Talk, the TEDx talk.
Oh, because of
Yeah,
this exhibit?
because of the exhibit, right? Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Um Amazing. And can you tell
Yeah.
me, I guess you've worked with some amazing, I mean, was that through the Smithsonian or where was this exhibit? Where did you do this exhibit through?
So this was at the a local museum here, the Sandy Spring Museum.
Mhm.
And I was able to get funding from American Express to actually cover the cost of that. But that was through I Fund Women of Color. I Fund
Okay,
Women is
you
a
finding all the
crowdfunding.
things. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'm just like taking notes over here. Like,
Finding things and doing a lot of praying. Like, please, I need to make
yeah.
this work. I have this idea. I don't know how to make it happen. Please, universe, make it happen. So I would say, and I said this in my TEDx talk as well, is that when you set your intention, what I've learned over the years is setting an intention really does help things to come into fruition. Because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. This is what I was coming up with. Expenses was like 100,000, and then I ended up getting people to say, hey, well, I can do this. This is the cost, and then I end up getting the grant through American Express, but it was through the crowdfunding campaign iPhone Women of Color that helped to connect it. So yeah, I'm grateful.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we haven't talked about one of your other horror movies yet, Negro Mountain, and the description. I haven't watched it, but the description: a clairvoyant neurosurgeon. Already, I'm on board. I'm like, yes, I need it. Say no more. But to go on and to tell us about the origins
That
of
gives
this
me like
one.
Reanimator vibes. I was like, uh-oh.
He's not clairvoyant though.
But still, like in the brain. Talk to me
Right.
about it. Yeah.
Yes. So Negro Mountain was actually it's also a feature. It was the first feature that I wrote, but I did a proof of concept for it. And it was based on it was true situations. Me and a friend had gone to a women's retreat. So Outdoor Women is a nonprofit organization. They're actually around the whole of the United States, but they really are focused on teaching women how to live outdoors. So that's what it is. So it was a weekend in Garrett County, Maryland, where you learn pretty much
That
everything
already
how to
sounds
survive.
terrifying. I'm
Yeah.
in. Tell me more. I was like, I saw Julia's face and I was like, Julia's not a camper. I spent my whole childhood like camping and doing all that stuff, like with scouts and stuff. But
It
I could
was
see your
fun.
face. Sorry. I was like,
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I see? I always think my face is neutral, but Teri can
honey,
read
I know
every
you too
thought.
well.
I
I know
know.
you too well.
I know. It just I've seen
You're
too
like,
many horror
camping?
movies.
No.
Camping makes me so nervous.
That's what I thought at first. I was like, I don't know if we want to do this, but I was like, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it. But it was pretty much survival skills. So shooting, cooking, hunting, everything that you would need to gardening, things that that you would need if you, let's say, if the world ended up coming to a space where we needed it. But I think just in general, just that experience was beautiful. But we were on our way to Garrett County, Maryland, which is about a 4-hour drive from where we are. We're both in Silver Spring, Maryland. So she is Puerto Rican. I'm Afro Caribbean. Both, so two women of color. As we were on our way there, we passed a sign, but she didn't see it. And I was like, wait a minute, did you see that sign? And she's like, no, there was, and she's joking about it, like, oh, so in the movie I actually put that in there, what she said. It's like, oh, you're joking. And maybe did you see Latina Mountain? And then so as she's joking about it, we come up to a space where it's pretty much like it's a dirt road, 2-lane street, but there was nobody out there. And she sees, as I'm researching it on my phone, she sees a construction work on the road. There's a sign that's coming up. And then she was like, wait a minute, that's kind of weird. Why would there be construction worker? This doesn't even make sense. Like, this is not even a well-developed area. Why is the construction workers like, I don't know, Alyscia. She actually hit the gas, and she went past him. And I remember him like trying to stop her, like, what are you doing or whatever. So she ended up going in a dirt road on the side because the GPS took us there and it was a dead end. So we came out of it, I think after like saying, okay, I think you need to just calm down. This is not, I think it's not really a big deal. But in that moment, I think also because being two women of color and being scared, the fear of not really sure, but we're in a space where there are other people that look like us, kind of got us in that. But it was really, the tone was set when I saw the Negro Mountain sign. So it was based off of that. And I just created like a fictional story that happened after
I'm
that.
already scared and I'm already in.
Yeah.
You sold it to me in that. That's terrifying. And
Was.
I've had that, like, I've driven across country. I actually lived in Maryland for a little while too,
Oh,
and not too far from Silver Spring. And so I just
okay.
remembered taking that drive across country though and being stuck somewhere in like Arkansas and where we had gotten lost. And this was before GPS was GPS. It was like we could print it out the MapQuest,
All right.
ahead of
Yes,
time. And
right.
then like I'd gone to like AAA and got, the little ticker tape they used to give you, like to
All
give
right.
you like, anyway, the triptych that you would drive across the country with. And I
Right.
remember just being lost in the middle of there. And I was like, and just seeing like Confederate flags. And I was like, oh
Oh,
no.
yes. And that's what
I
we
was
saw
like,
too.
just in the car.
Yeah. Same thing. There was Confederate flags everywhere. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
yeah, right, yeah. Yeah.
But to take a scary real life moment and turn it into art.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I told her in that moment, this happened in about 2016. I was like, I'm gonna make this into a film. It was so funny afterwards, we laughed about it, but and we had a wonderful time for the weekend, but I was like, I'm gonna turn this into a film, so yeah.
That's
That's what I
pretty
did.
great.
Yeah.
So,
So
an
what is
amazing intro.
what can I ask what it is about horror that intrigues you?
I think the biggest thing about horror is for me is the resilience that comes out of it. So the strength, the people who are able to gather enough strength to survive the situation. I think that's the most intriguing of anything. But I think that also stems down from the stories that I've been told from my parents as a child, because even though there were these real moment stories, they're just real, real lifetime childhood memories, but then some horrific moments in their childhood. But even through that, and so for example, my mother has a stroke. She suffered a stroke when she was 25 years old, which left
Oh,
her
wow.
with paralysis on her left side. But she was always so resilient. My mom, I've never seen my mom never really complained. She drove, she cooked, she did everything. I never even saw her as a differently abled because of everything that she did, But I think a lot of that inspiration comes from my parents' stories growing up, So that resilience is what is intriguing to me within the horror genre and the documentary too, because I tend to watch documentaries that are stories of resilience. Yeah.
And what is something that you love about the horror community?
So the horror community can be a little iffy. I would say that I do
Tell it. Oh my God, I want to hear your stories. Oh my gosh.
So I have it's two different groups of people. It's those people who just love a really good story, which I enjoy having that conversation. A lot of people think that it's weird that I love horror. I don't know if you have that experience. When I say I love horror, people are like, oh, I either get that you love horror or, oh, I love horror too,
Julia has surrounded herself with people who all love horror, and for 90% of her friends, I think, at least
Okay.
do. So she doesn't have that issue. But when I tell people, like, oh, what are you like? Really? Like,
Right.
even my best friends are like, when did this happen to you? And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's true. There was a change.
That is the response, right? And then also there's a group of people sometimes that I meet because I'm a part of I've joined different horror discords or chats or meetups, and there's a few people like, I think they might be the horror. So I get I get those two groups, I prefer to I think be with the group that just enjoys a good horror story, yeah.
And
Not
what's
like
this?
the
Yeah, I
not
understand
like
what you're saying.
not like the what's the one that I saw recently? I was like, I don't ever want to see this film again. The clown.
Terrifier?
Terrifier. Oh my gosh, Terrifier 3.
Oh,
It goes
we're
hard.
gore hounds. We're
We're
gore
gore
hounds.
hounds. We love
Oh,
it,
you're
but we can
gore. Oh my
understand.
gosh.
We're
Yeah.
in, I love, I mean, we
Yeah.
are we're cinephiles first. I think
Okay.
I will always say that because Julie and I bonded over film long before it was horror. That was the center of a lot of our discourse. But because Julie was a programmer at a Revival House Cinema for like 8 years, like it's like, her first documentary is about 35 millimeter film in general. Like, so it's just, we understand film as like, as being king and story being first, but
Right.
I love really great effects and art as well too.
It
And I
was
feel
great
like,
effects.
and that's the fact that it's like, all practical effects and just, instead
Right.
of what we're getting now with so much stuff that's been CG'd, it's just really exciting to see
Yeah.
something where someone went back to like their roots of like, let's build these things and how crazy can I build it? And you can really see his skill that's changed over the course of, his projects. And so you can see like where he started to where he is now, what he can build now. So that's why I'm into those movies. I will say that.
And
But
also,
also, something about watching girls get messed up by a stupid clown makes me so happy.
David Howard Thornton is given, we like to say he's given a Charlie Chaplin-esque level performance of comedy,
his
physical
physicality.
comedy. It just
Yeah.
happens to be that he's killing people terribly. So like,
Yes.
it's,
I
But
would
it
say
is
though
not
that
for
was
everyone.
it was good effects though. That one thing, because I was looking at it, it's hard now as a filmmaker to look at something without that the filmmaker's eye, so I was like, is that real? I'm looking at the guts and everything, but I was like, it's things like that kind of sits with me, so that's why I avoid the gore. But they did do a phenomenal job with that, with the effects, or I don't know, props, I guess.
Yeah, and that's how we look at it, as like a craftsmanship kind of beauty of this kind of thing. But but is that kind of the scariest horror to you, or what is the scariest
That was honestly
movie?
the scariest, because I started getting anxiety every time he did that face.
His little ding.
Yes, that face. He went from the smile to like the frown.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, what is he doing now? But I did sit through the whole thing. I did sit through it. That was
okay.
scary.
Yeah. I mean, we've watched all of them. We've talked to Damien and David Howard on our podcast as well. And after the third one, I'm like, of course they're making a fourth one, and as well they should. It's doing gangbusters. But I'm like, how far else can you go? Where else are you gonna go, man? Like that's the furthest, hardest thing I've ever seen.
It is.
And he's always just pushing it because I'm just like, okay, what else?
What
What
else?
are you gonna serve to us? And it's gonna be bad. Whatever's next is gonna be worse. So
Yep.
can't wait.
can't
Yep.
imagine. I can't imagine how much, because I didn't see 1 and 2. So this is the first one that I saw.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
If you
guess
start
you,
at
I mean,
3, if you start at 3, yeah.
It's
You
yeah,
funny. Yeah.
didn't get to ramp up. Like we
I
watched
didn't.
even his shorts that he did before All Hallows Eve. It's an anthology that he did, and that's where the art kind of got more introduced. And so you only
Oh,
get a
so check
little bit
that
of him.
one
And
out.
he's basically the wraparound of that anthology. And
Okay.
so you can see like the genesis of it. You can't see where he's gonna be, like, but you
Right.
can see like, I see
Hmm.
why they built a franchise around you, dear sir.
Oh, okay. I have to check that one out. I have to check that one out
You
then.
might actually you might
Yeah.
not hate. I feel like just because that first one is more survival with like the way
Okay.
the anthology's set up, it's
but
kind
it's
of a
a lot
babysitter gone wrong story.
of
So
gore.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
So
All right. I'll check
he
that one out then.
he does love his gore, Damon Leone,
so
so
yeah,
be warned that
yeah.
there will be
Okay.
gore.
Okay.
Um, so
Yeah.
I guess what was the last film that you watched, horror or not?
Last film that I actually watched was, I'm actually sitting watching the series uh Kaepernick in black and white with my daughter.
Nice. So
Yeah,
documentary,
documentary.
basically.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
is it? Yeah, document. What's it called?
But
Fictional
it's like
documentary.
fictional doc, yeah, series
Yeah,
because it's
right.
like based on
Yeah,
his life. But yeah,
right.
how
So
is that? I haven't started that yet. How is
So,
it?
first 2 episodes is really good. I was the connections that he made I thought was really, really powerful. And I don't want to spill it, but so when you see
Oh,
it in the
tell us a
very
little bit. Give
beginning.
us a little bit.
So okay, so in the very beginning, he talks about the relationship to athletes, specifically football players, and slavery, like being on the
Oh
auction
yeah.
block.
Oh
So
yeah.
I thought that was such a visual appeal there. It was a really powerful statement. And then to actually switch it from what they do when they're doing, like, for example, measuring the arm, the length of the arms, and they show what they did on the auction block. I was like, wow, this is
It's
crazy.
the same. It's the same.
Yeah,
It's
right.
terrifying. My brother's TED Talk is actually called No Games Black Man, and like he literally
Oh,
talks about he was really inspired, unfortunately, after Junior Seau had passed, because we grew up in San Diego and we knew him
mhm,
growing up, and like he lived down the street from some of our best friends, and just seeing what
mm,
football had done, a to help uplift the community, but then also
right,
see how because of what happens to these men and
right,
the CTE and everything that happens to their brains and everything that how they give their lives to this sport, and then
right.
what that trade-off really is to a family, to the community, to everything. It really affected him. So he actually, I think, had stopped watching football for like 10 years, probably, I think, after
Oh,
that, and
wow.
had done this TED Talk just specifically about that. Dr. Brandon Gamble, I'm going to shout out him too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Talking
I
about
like
that,
some of
but
the
a
names.
similar, conversation, I think, as far as like with what Kaepernick is going into. And we talk about this a lot. He and I chat a lot about what that looks like. And it's a big reason why I don't
Mm,
really watch football either. I just watch the
right.
halftime show because,
Same here.
America.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but and then, I go home.
Do you mind taking his TEDx talk again? I would love to watch it and give
Yeah,
him
hold
a
on.
shout
I
out. Sorry.
will I will send you a link actually too.
Okay.
But it's yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we have a question that we do like to ask all of our
Mhm.
guests, and I will ask it to you.
Okay.
About George Romero and how his films and if the impact that they've made on your life.
Um. So I know, to be honest, I've seen one years ago. So long, like maybe like I feel like it was in the early '90s. Um, and it was I don't remember the name. What I am is horrible with names of films and even people. But I remember the visual. There was I believe it was a black guy who was the lead
Uh-huh.
actor in it, and for me that was the first time seeing uh a black person in a horror film. So it's really for me, it's important, um, like representation, to be able to see even though, to see myself in a film or to see how I think that we will respond to it. So I would say that one would be the one that stuck with me, you know. And I
Yeah.
feel like I need to do some more diving, to be honest, to see more of
Well,
his
I mean,
films.
George Romero is pretty incredible, right? Because Night of the
Right,
Living Dead is 1968, and you have
right,
Dwayne Jones as the lead of the film, and you go on to Dawn of the Dead, and you have Ken Foray, but
right,
you're looking at like 1968, and you have this lead, and I think it's so incredible. So I think he's, he always says that it was like, oh, he was the best actor, and you're like, yes, he was the best actor, and that's like the
mhm,
reason you gave him the part, and that alone is
right,
incredible. I think it's like, oh, he was just the best
right,
actor. but I think
But
he
also that era,
knew.
he knew what he was doing. As much as he tried to downplay it, it's like 1968's no accident. I mean, that's the year that Dr. King is shot. That's the year that there's a lot
Yeah.
going on. We have the Summer of Love. We have the Vietnam War. We have all these men of color that are going over and fighting for, America, or the idea of America, and literally being the first in the front lines to be sacrificed,
Right.
in this churn of war. And so I think that's not an accident, considering him and, like, his friends and what they're all experiencing at that time.
Right.
And knowing, how all of that affected, like, people like Tom Savini, you know what I mean? Like, all these things of how that war really affected these guys. You can really see that impact in, their view of America from there.
Which is commendable to even, consider that, right.
Well, the great thing about George Romero is you can dive in anytime, and it's all waiting for you. And it's
And I watch some of his movies every year, and then they always hit me in a different spot, and I'm go, oh, that's still true, and oh, we're still working on that, and oh
Right.
wow,
Yeah.
And I think he's really the kind of the forefather of bringing social commentary into horror, because I think that wasn't necessarily the game before A Night of the Living Dead kind of started. And all of his movies have, yes, it's about zombies on level 1, but level 2, it's about, this thing, and level 3 and 4 and 5, it's this very multi-layered kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. And he has a wonderful array of movies as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. We Martin is Underseen, one of our favorites.
And Season of the Witch.
Season of the Witch. Okay.
Highly recommend Season of the Witch, and that's one of those ones that, as the years tick on, gets more and more.
Okay.
It's yeah.
Okay.
Season of the Witch,
That,
also called Hungry Wives, but Season of the Witch.
Okay.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. I think there was one Monkey Shine. I remember seeing that years ago.
Yes.
That one. That I remember, for whatever reason. I can't remember what the exact story, but I remember that scared me as a kid.
Because it's scary.
Right.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's actually very scary.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I mean, obviously, Night and Dawn and Day are the trilogy to be topped. But I think also he has the movie, a Lost movie that came out through the George A. Romero Foundation a few years ago called The Amusement Park, which is about ageism and is one of the most hard-hitting and really poignant movies I've ever seen about that subject. Highly recommended.
It's called Ageism?
It's called The Amusement Park.
The Amusement Park. I'm gonna look for that one. I'm gonna write that down. Okay.
It's
I
really,
feel like
really,
you will
really
love
cool.
that too, just based on the things that you get into. And
I think that's a kind of a level of accessibility that doesn't get talked about very much. Right. And especially in the way America kind of, and this is what the whole, premise is, a man going to an amusement park, but the rides are, you get to take your driver's license away, and now you can't see your grandkids anymore, and now your body's failing, and like all of these things of how society treats people who are older.
Oh yeah. That's on multiple levels too, right? So I'll look for that one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I love knowing that he originally made that for a church. Sorry.
He did.
It was a project where, like, sometimes you pitch something to a certain place and they go, great, we have this amazing person to do it. And then they're like, oh, we got to think from this person. Did we know what he does?
Yeah, they did not know George Romero was George Romero.
They didn't know. Oh, wow.
No. Okay. So they were like, make a movie about how we can include senior citizens. And he's like, okay, I got you.
That's funny.
That's harder than they anticipated, which is why it was lost for a little while. But I'm glad it was restored lovingly by the foundation. And what they did on that is amazing. What were you going to ask me, Julia? Something else? I
was going to ask if you had any other questions for Alyscia.
Oh my gosh, I'm like looking through my little thing.
We got notes.
I know I got notes, copious notes. Let's see if there's, let me see, any other thing about, I guess, your favorite, or who's your dream collaborator? Who do you want to collaborate with? And who do you want to collaborate with again that you've loved working with? I'm curious about that.
Yes. So dream collaborator. I would love to be able to collaborate with CC Pounder.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I would love to be able to do a horror movie with her. Yeah. Yes.
If you can't get her, please call me. I can give you some CC.
Oh really? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right.
And then literally when I was in grad school doing my MFA in acting, that was one of the actors I got all the time that they're like, you could do all her stuff. I was like, you're right. Energetically speaking, yeah. Awesome.
I think she'd be great in a horror. Film,
Yes.
And also, I would love to, because I really want to, because this is also my Dwayne is a horror, is based on, Caribbean folklore. I really want to be able to get a cast that is of real, because I think Cece Pounder is from Guyana.
Mhm.
So like all Caribbean background to get authentic accents, that is so important to me.
Yeah.
I don't want the having to learn the accent or make believe. I really want to be able to get authentic representation there.
Mhm.
So she is one,
Don't
and
call me, but I will absolutely be supportive. I
oh,
can't do it.
okay.
My Caribbean, I've worked on it. I have a dialect coach. He coached a bunch of the people on Black Panther and stuff, but you know.
Oh, okay. Oh, and the guy on Black Panther too. I would want to be. I cannot remember his name.
Winston?
Winston. Yes, he's from
Yeah.
Trinidad. I would love to be able
Yeah.
to work with him as well. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you
Just
can
two that come to
you
mind.
will work with all these people. I feel like that's easy. I know. I feel like I'm 1 degree from all of these people. We got you. We got
All
you.
right.
Yeah, and you
I
Yeah.
got
appreciate that.
we are really hoping, cheering you on, and like we're so excited to see your feature when it's going to be. I mean, that's going to be amazing.
You'll have to
But
come
doing
back on our
Thank
two,
other show when your feature's out and we
yes,
can
for
talk
Okay.
about
sure.
it.
I would most definitely love to be back and talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a process. I'm
We know,
learning.
we know.
We're
That's
supportive and
right.
we will wait. We've been doing
Yeah.
our show for 8 years. You got time. All right.
Oh,
We'll
yeah.
keep going. We'll keep going.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. 8 years. That's a big deal. So congratulations to keep on going.
Thank
That's
you.
wonderful. Yeah, you're
Yeah, Terry
welcome.
and I have been best friends since 1999, and
Oh,
so
nice.
this is
Yeah.
nice to still be able to, but
Yeah.
also not only get to do this, but I get to share this with my best friend is what makes it
Right.
special.
Yeah.
You
That's
know?
wonderful. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
good.
any other plugs for you, Alyscia? Can you tell the people where they can
Um,
find your works and how they can interact with you, or if you want them to?
Yes.
Because I know how you feel about half of this community. No, just
Yeah, so they can connect with me. I love to connect with people. So my website is Alyscia, my first name, so ALYSCIA.com. All my social channels are there. I'm on I'm more interactive though on Instagram, and I think Instagram is more I'm more interactive than anything, but Facebook, LinkedIn as well, YouTube, anywhere they can find me, and I love to be able to just chat, have a conversation, talk about horror and documentaries.
Awesome. And can they
Yeah.
find your work on your website?
Yes, on my website.
Excellent.
There's a portfolio link there. I also have a blog and I have a newsletter if anybody that wants to stay in touch with what I'm
okay,
working
join your
on.
newsletter. Yes,
Yes,
add me. Okay, great.
yes. And I'm actively doing a fundraiser this year, working on fundraisers for the actual feature film. So I'm in
Oh,
that process.
excellent. Are
Yeah,
you going to be
yeah.
doing a crowdfunding campaign?
I will be, although I'm don't. It's like one of those things like I do
I
another
know.
I
crowdfunding.
just felt
Yeah.
that. I just felt the weight of that on your body. So I'm just gonna say
Yes,
we
yes,
surrender the weight.
yes. I
It's
do
a
surrender
joyous
that.
thing, and we want to
Right,
know that if we need to help birthing our art into
right.
existence,
Yes,
sometimes we need to call on our community and friends to help us
yes,
birth that thing. So
yes.
that's a beautiful thing, and they want to
Thank
help
you.
you, and people want to
Yeah,
conspire to help bring beautiful art into this world. And
yes.
sounds like that's what you're doing. So
Thank you for the reminder. I appreciate that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And thanks for having me. This is a wonderful conversation.
Thank
yay!
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
Yes,
gosh, yeah, thank you
thank you
again for
so
joining
much for joining
us.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can listen to our podcast, Horror Movie Survive Guide, anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also hear Julia take deep dive into different stories every week as we take different deep dives. Sorry, into different stories every week, and we try to figure out how you can survive to become the final girl.
And you can also catch me on my other podcast, The Losers Club, talking all about Stephen King. We have episodes coming out. They're going to be humdingers, and Jodorowsky, all about Alejandro Jodorowsky and his amazing art.
I love that so much, Julia. And also check out the George A. Romero Foundation, please, which is dedicated to restoring Romero's work, including seldom seen pieces from early in his career, like we talked about earlier, like the amusement park, and also helping the next generation of young filmmakers. Thank you to everyone who's been watching. Please do feel free to reach out to Julia or myself online. We love to interact with you as well.
And we will
Yes.
see you next time. So thank you for watching and hoping your days and nights are fantastic oracle. Thank you again, Alyscia.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yay.
Yay.